order and ask for the roll call, please.
Weibel. Bergson. Harper. Petrie. Schrader.
Here.
Shore. Esri.
Here. We have a quorum. Thank you. Move on then to approval of agenda and addenda. Moved by Ms. Bergson, seconded by Mr. Harper. Is there any additions or corrections? I will just point out under item 9A, the annexation petition for Champaign County property located at 2603 Campbell Drive. The actual sheet for the petition did not make it into the packet. Should be at your desk. So if you want to be taking a little bit of a look at that. If there's nothing else, then we'll move on to approval of the minutes for the ELEC committee meeting, May 7th, 2015. Moved by Mr. Shore and seconded by Ms. Bergson. Any additions or corrections? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Okay, that passes. Public participation. Oh, sorry. Yes. Oh, is there a we moved it. Skipped ahead. All in favor of the addenda, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Thank you. Getting ahead of myself again. Okay, now public participation. I don't see any public, so if they're going to be late, we may work them in. Move on then to communications. Are there any communications? Other than, as we were discussing here just a few minutes ago, I know Ms. Petrie's in Texas for the graduation of her grandson, so that's why she's not going to be here tonight. So that's a good reason. Okay, move on then to number 7, items from information only. We have House Bill 3523, Wind Energy Facilities Construction and Deconstruction Act. And this is just for information only. Were you going to speak on that, John, or if we had questions?
Just if there are questions.
Ms. Bergson, and microphone, please, for the...
This is weaker than
Microphone, please.
This is weaker than the law we have in our county, is it not?
Probably, but we don't have the administrative rules implementing it yet, so it's difficult to say if their requirements, how they'll actually match up, but I would not expect them to be the same.
And, before when they tried to put in a law that was less than ours, we all knew about it. We were all fighting about it and so on. This one slipped by. We never heard a word about it. Why?
I don't know. It's the first I've heard about it since some time ago. I suspect that just they kept working it, and finally it got enough support behind the scenes that it passed quickly. I do know that, there's several counties that don't have near the requirements that we have, and they're probably happy to see this because now.
But I think the people who have the wind farms in Champaign County are probably also very happy to see this. Will they be able to get out from under the agreement with us?
No.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I guess I had one, but then John, pertaining to Astrid's last question, but when they renew, will then it would go to the state, wouldn't it? The way I read, it would go to the state's requirements and that's the way I read the information in the packet that I thought.
I don't know if that applied to, see, our special use permit doesn't actually expire. The only time they would need a new one is if they're going to, at the end of the useful life of the turbines, if they put on bigger turbines, they would need a new approval. And then, at that point, I think you might have, this might apply. And that's what we would expect them to do. I mean, we expect turbines to be there
Yeah.
forever.
Mr. Weibel?
I think the assumption is that with the new contract, you'd probably get new turbines, so.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Any other questions, comments? Okay, moving on to 7B, summary of the proposed update to the Champaign County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan. There comments or questions on that?
Yeah.
Ms. Monty has.
I'd like to just say a few things about that update, so you have an idea of what's going on. Next week, June 9th, the full draft of the update will be placed online and available for public review. And we will have an open house at the public library, Champaign Public Library, on Tuesday, and at the Urbana Free Library on Thursday for those interested. So the update has been going on for about a year, and we received a 6-month extension, as we expected that we would need to receive review and approval by all of the municipalities in the county. So that's a lot of places to get the word out to and have them participate in its development. So it's been a lot of contact with those municipalities. And let's see. Essentially, FEMA guidelines and requirements needed to be adhered to. So there was a very rigid process for updating this plan. We selected hazards to profile, essentially keeping the same hazards and adding 2 technical hazards, which were optional, which the planning team were interested in adding, and those 2 added hazards were hazardous waste transport and storage, and active shooter scenarios in schools. So those were the 2 technical, non-natural hazards that were added to the plan. You probably recall over the past year, there have been lots of press releases and news articles about spills and hazardous waste storage incidents, so that's a pretty timely concern. Risk assessment occurred using the FEMA HAZA software, which was challenging just to get it to work correctly. But we made it through that process, and for the most part, these are qualitative risk assessments using updated census information and updated floodplain information and all the updated data that we can use. Goals and objectives were somewhat adjusted to adhere to the FEMA directive to recognize the potential impacts associated with climate change and the importance of community resiliency. So some of the wording of the goals and objectives in the plan were adjusted to reflect those new concepts to the plan. It's a national program, this FEMA program for the most part, and many of the coastal communities cannot ignore the potential impacts associated with climate change. So it was critical, and the president actually had a directive just to make sure that each hazard mitigation plan at the very minimum acknowledges these important concepts. Mitigation actions were the main focus of the update, and each jurisdiction that participated took a look at the progress made towards implementing their actions. These are voluntary actions for the most part. There's a list for each jurisdiction. Champaign County has about 18 or 19 mitigation actions. The new one added this year in the draft is to conduct a needs assessment for shelter needs for vulnerable populations in unincorporated areas of the county. So that can mean looking at manufactured home parks and seeing if there's a community shelter and just identifying needs as a first step. Just as an example of a new mitigation action, other mitigation actions related to improving communications with regard to preventative actions that could be taken prior to a disaster or a hazard event. Maintenance and implementation of the plan will continue as before. The planning team will meet once a year at least and communicate with regard to mutually interesting mitigation actions that perhaps could be, forces could be combined and efficient measures taken to try to do those jointly or not. So at least to retain the communication about mitigation planning. We did have 5 meetings over the past year of the planning team, and I may have mentioned that the staff, project staff represented about 19 of the villages, outlying villages, who were not directly represented on the planning team with a professional, such as John Dwyer was the EMA coordinator who chaired the team. We had fire department officials from the city of Champaign, city of Urbana, village of Savoy. We had a planner from the public health district, and we had planners from Mahomet and Rantoul as well. So the largest populated municipalities were represented on the planning team directly, and the staff represented all of the outlying municipalities. The U of I and Parkland also participated. We had those public safety officials on our planning team. So it went well, and we're wrapping this up now and preparing for the open houses next week. You'll see items in the media, and it'll be online available for your review starting next week. The public review lasts through at least June, and that public review period likely will be extended through July, and likely will be going out to each participating local government jurisdiction for a review and approval beginning in August, and wrap that up by October, hopefully.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Weibel?
Susan, you mentioned hazardous spills. Does that include spills along the railroad lines?
Well, that is a storage and transport related type of incident, yes. We haven't identified mitigation actions, but we have identified it as a hazard and profiled it.
I mean, we know that there's these black tank cars that come through on these, like Canadian National, which is probably oil from North Dakota.
Yeah.
That's my biggest concern. And obviously, there's an aspect of explosions too, but you're not dealing with it. You're dealing with just I'm thinking of a spill.
Incidents, yes,
Yeah.
for the most part, spills,
Right,
leaks,
right,
that type of thing.
Right. And certainly
So-
that could happen.
At present, we haven't suggested any directly related mitigation actions, but we're definitely going to be looking at those as they may become evident.
Okay.
In-
I think it'd be worth looking into.
Thank you.
Mr. Schrader?
Just a couple things to add on to what Mr. Weibel said about railroads and such. Some of those black tank cars may not be oil, but they may be ethanol, especially on the NS line. And they may also be, and it also on the CN line too. So those are definite concerns that are out there in the county. And another thing too, you mentioned about manufactured home parks and things when it comes to storm shelters. Lloyd Carter has been after that for a long time, so he's been very concerned about.
Did you say Mr. Carter?
Yes,
Okay, I didn't catch that.
yeah, Lloyd Carter.
Yes,
Mr.
okay.
Carter's been
Yep.
very concerned about that for a lot of years, and I think you'll be relieved to hear that we're going to go into some kind of mitigation plan for those areas, because there are quite a few areas throughout the areas that have manufactured home parks, so that's good to hear. Thanks.
Anything else? Okay, seeing none, we will move on then to 7C, fiscal year 2015 county planning contract status update. I believe that's Ms. Monty again.
Right, this essentially gives you a snapshot of where we are as far as progress in completion of the fiscal year 15 planning contract. So we're about at 40% as of today, and I think we're having no major delay that we are expecting during the remaining portion of this year. So if you have any questions, I'm a little disappointed about the tire collection that did not yet happen. So it's out of my control, though. It's a state thing, and everything at the state level is a bit in flux. So that was all set up to go and just never happened. Assistance to Dobbins Downs hasn't begun yet, but we're looking forward to seeing what can be done out there. Other than that, if you had any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Any questions? Okay, we will then move on to line 8, items to receive and place on file by ELUC committee to allow for 60-day review period. 8A, fiscal year 2016, county planning contract proposal. Is there a motion to approve this? Moved by Mr. Shore. Is there, seconded by Mr. Harper. Discussion. As we see, there's 60 days, so this isn't the final, but if you can continue to look at it and the public can look at it or make comments. Ms. Busey.
I believe I was asked about this contract maybe as early as February or March, and the board has since adopted a budget for the general corporate fund, which will require 4% reductions. This is a general corporate fund expenditure, so I will talk to Ms. Black, but I'm not sure that this will actually end up being the amount that's listed here. It probably needs to be taken this year's number and cut it by 4% rather than increasing it by 2%.
Thank you. Any other questions at this point in time? Okay, seeing none, then we will move on to line 9, items for recommendation to the county board. A, annexation petition for Champaign County property located at 2603 Campbell Drive, Champaign. Is there such a motion to recommend approval?
We
Or,
need to back up.
oh, I am getting ahead of myself. You were right. For the county planning contract proposal, I'm skipping the votes, that's my fault. Back to the county planning contract proposal for 2016 fiscal year. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, please say nay. Thank you, that passed. Now then, we'll move on to 9. Annexation petition for Champaign County property located at 2603 Campbell Drive, Champaign. And is there,
So moved.
moved by Mr. Schrader, seconded by Mr.
And
Weibel.
then I have a question.
Go ahead.
is, I assume that, who's annexing what?
The city of Champaign.
City of Champaign, okay, I just want to clarify,
Yeah.
okay. And I know I looked this up, but I can't remember where the heck it is now. Where's Campbell Drive?
Dobbins Downs.
Okay. Oh, this is the park area? We can't talk into maybe a few more properties?
It'd be great if we could, but I don't think so.
Any other questions, comments? But yeah, this is the property that basically the county owns at this point in time, and we will still own it. But, correct, it's just going into the city.
We will still own it, but the intent
Yeah.
is to actually convey it to the city.
Yeah. Eventually, this is the first step. Okay, all in favor of recommending this to the county board, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Okay, thank you, that passes unanimously. Go on to B, adjustment to fiscal year 2015 planning contract. Is there such a motion?
I'll move to approve the adjustment.
Moved by Mr. Weibel, seconded by Mr. Shore. Ms. Berkson, microphone, please. Thank you.
Will more of these coolants be used before you look into them?
Yes, or depending on whether permits are applied for.
Okay, and who grants the permits?
The Department, Public Health Department.
Let's see. And what kind of coolant does the county use?
Well, I understand that these are non-food grade coolants at present that are permitted. There's not one particular coolant that is required. It's just that there are no restrictions specific to the toxicity of the coolant that may be proposed to be used. So that is the primary concern.
And what have we used, like out at the bus barn?
I don't know without checking.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Weibel.
They use ethylene glycol? Okay.
Other comments, questions? Mr. Shore.
So with regard to the portion that we're striking, is this something that's going to come back at a later time, or?
Right, that item will come back in 2017, once the Water Policy Task Force or group that is reviewing those issues has had a chance to make a recommendation. So it makes more sense to delay that a bit, that item.
Other questions? Okay, all in favor of making the adjustment to the fiscal year 2015 planning contract as proposed, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Okay, thank you, that passes. Move on then to line 10, we'll go to the addendum first. Items to be approved by ELUC. We have a revised timeline for prosecuting current dangerous structure cases. And discussion on this, and before we, because if we're presented with two different scenarios. Or does someone, yeah, someone, I guess if you want to move to approve one of them, I guess would probably be in order to approve one of the two timelines, and then we could have a discussion. I know they've been in the addendum, weren't necessarily quickest, but if someone wants to.
I move to approve table one.
Moved by,
Second.
and seconded by Ms. Did you second it? Ms. Berkson? Okay, we have a motion then to approve table one, and moved and seconded, moved by Mr. Weibel, seconded by Ms. Berkson. Now discussion. Mr. Weibel.
I can tell you why I approved table one, because I see that its costs for the initial few years are less. Period.
But the total costs are greater.
Well, I understand that.
Any further discussion? Go ahead.
I question, I noticed that under the Seymour gas station site, it says the underground tanks may be left as is. I'm curious. The EPA allows that?
That came straight from the EPA. They've been there, they're familiar with what's been done, and they're happy with it.
So there's some sort of remediation is taking place
Yes,
at the,
yes.
okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions as we all kind of maybe look at Mr. Shore?
So, I mean, are the levels of funding for 16 and 17 even possible? Like, are they reasonable?
Deb, Ms. Busey.
Again, we started talking about this particular issue for ELUC probably 3 or 4 months ago, and the budget process resolution directs Mr. Hall to prepare his fiscal 16 budget with a 4% reduction in cost. And we are not going to do future operational changes with the fiscal 16 budget. This is what we've done in the past. However, I will be asking Mr. Hall, and we will be doing for all departments, a statement of optimal operational planning. So that is where this would now be brought to light for the county board in the budget planning process. But it's highly unlikely that we have the funding to do this, unfortunately, in the 2016 budget. So the process has changed a little bit, is all I'm pointing out. We will still make sure the Finance Committee gets this information. It may not be in exactly this form, because we're not using this form this year for 2016.
And I guess it wouldn't hurt to say that it looks like it kind of ties in, you could say, with the next item the intercommittee memo as well. Anything else, though, on this revised timeline while we're still on it? And if not, all those in favor of adopting Table 1, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Okay, that passes. Thank you. Move on to 10B, provide an intercommittee memo to the Finance Committee in support of a future operational change for the property clearance line item in the Department of Planning and Zoning budget, including an estimated $70,100 in fiscal year 2016. And is there, Ms. Busey?
Could I possibly ask for an amendment to that? That would be to direct the zoning administrator or the planning and zoning director to prepare that information to be presented with the fiscal 2016 budget rather than as an intercommittee memo to finance, and finance will then receive it.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mr. Harper with the amendment is Ms. Busey, and you agree, Ms. Bergson? Okay, first and seconded, discussions. Anything, Mr. Weibel? You just look, you're thinking. Okay. That's fine. No, that's fine. You were thinking. I was just checking to see if you had a question. Yep. Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Okay, that passes. We will then move on to 10, I guess it would now be C, actually, monthly reports for April 2015, which we will receive and place on file. Are there any questions or comments about those? Do you have anything on those, John? Okay. Okay, we will move on then to other business. Anything else there? I guess I might ask John, is there any updates on like the fenced-in property there, whatever? I just have an address.
1101 Carroll is
Yeah,
fenced
yeah.
in, and there's a court date scheduled for July 23rd.
Okay. Thanks. If there's no other business, I have no chair's report. Designated nation of items to be placed on consent agenda. We would have the item, or line 9, A and B. Those both passed unanimously. And our next meeting date is scheduled to be July 9th, 2015, but we usually cancel that meeting, so do we need a motion to cancel it? Mr. Weibel,
I move that we cancel the meeting in July.
moved by Mr. Weibel,
Second.
seconded by Ms. Bergson and Mr. Weibel.
Mr. Hall, will we survive without the meeting?
I have nothing for that meeting. All the major R&E licenses have been approved, so the fair can go ahead, and I don't really expect anything.
Has ZBA also been pretty slow lately?
Not slow, but well, now that you mention it, there is one map amendment that may be finalized on June 25th.
Could that go through the full board in July? Does it have to go through committee?
It ordinarily goes through committee.
But
I suppose we could take it directly to the board. You never know how things might turn out going that
Well-
way. If the petitioner, in this case, could wait until August, that's
Okay.
actually what I would
that-
recommend.
that's a possibility? Okay.
Mr. Shore.
There was that couple items that were pulled off consent at the last county board meeting. Is there any chance that we'll need to take any sort of immediate action in July?
No, I'm hoping that that might be approved yet at June's county board meeting, but neither of those things are facing an actual deadline other than as soon as possible.
Okay, any other questions on if we're going to, or what would happen if we cancel? And if not, all in favor of canceling the July ELET meeting, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Okay, we will have no July ELET committee meeting. And is there a motion to adjourn? Moved by Ms. Berkson, seconded by Mr. Shore. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Okay, we're adjourned. Thanks.